In this video, I'm going to solve the ninth problem in the assignment 4, which is given a 2D array, print it in the spiral form. So we have given an example and we have given a 2D array, so which is a matrix, and we need to print it in the spiral form. I just want to write the input again. So this is the example input that we have, and in this we need to iterate through each element and print each element, but in the spiral form, which means let's say I just want to assume a few variables which are start row and end row, start column and end column. So start row is we start at the first row, so we start at index 0, so I'd say start row as index 0, and end row is we have 4 rows here, so the last row would be third index at index 3, and start column is 0, and end column is we have 4 columns here, so which is 3. At index 3 we have the last column. So we start at start row and we iterate through each element until we reach the end row. So we start with 1 and iterate through each and every element, and we'll be printing each element that we pass through. So in the output we'll be printing 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now we have reached the end of the row, so we stop here and then we change the direction to down. So here we finish the first row, so the start row becomes incremented. So now the start row is at index 1, which is the second row in the matrix. So we have finished the first row. Now the direction is towards down, and we need to iterate through the last column. So once we iterate through the last column, it becomes 8, 12 and 16, and since we finished the last column, we need to decrement the end column, which becomes 3 minus 1 is 2, and then we need to we'll change the direction to the left and we iterate through the left, and we need to go upward direction. So now what happens is when we come left, we'll decrement the end row, which becomes 2, and we have finished in the upward direction the first column. So we need to change the start column to +1, which is 1. Now we have start row at 1, index 1. So this is the index 1. We need to start with from here, and we need to repeat the same process again. We need to start with the right direction and then go downwards left until we need to repeat the process until we finish all the elements in the matrix. So in the output we get this as output in the spiral form. So let's write the function, or let's write the code for this. Function, and I'm naming it as a spiral form. And matrix is the parameter. So we need to have the count of the given matrix, so that we can I'll be using the while loop here. So to stop the while loop, we need to have the end condition. For that, I'm using the matrix count, which is number of rows into number of columns. So once we reach the matrix count, then we'll be stopping the loop. So for that, I am declaring a variable which is matrix count, and in that we have number of rows into number of columns, which is matrix dot length into matrix of 0 dot length, which is number of columns. Now I'm just declaring a few variables. And I'm declaring a start row, end row, and a start column and end column. End column is matrix of 0 dot length minus 1. So we need to have a count so that we will know once we finished all the elements. So it is let's start with 0, and direction we start with the right. First I'm printing out the first element, so I'll be starting with the second element. So I'm just doing console.log matrix of 0. Since we already printed one element, let's start with the count as 1. Now I'll be starting the while loop. While count is less than matrix count. So count is the variable that we declared here, and matrix count is the total number of elements that are present in the input. And the while loop, first we'll check the direction. So if direction is right, then we'll do the while loop, so that will be if the direction is right, we will be printing all the elements in that row. So I'm using another while loop inside this, so that I'll iterate through the elements until I reach the end of the row. So the exit condition is n less than end column, which means if I reach the last element in the row, then I'll come out of this while loop. First, since we already printed the first element, first I am doing the n++. So n is just a variable that I declared as 0, and then I am just gonna console log the matrix with m as row and n as column. And I have the count 1. Now that I printed another element, I am just incrementing the count. So once I reach the end of the row, then I need to change the direction. I'll change the direction to down. Then we need to increment the start row. Since we already iterated through the row, then we need to increment the start row. Else if the direction is down, then we'll start another while loop in which I'm gonna check if m is less than n row. So here it will be iterating in the downward direction until we reach the last row. So I'm checking the m is just a variable which is initialized to 0, and we'll be iterating through each element until we reach the last row, which is the end row here. Then I'm just doing m++ first, because we have already printed out the last element in the first row. So here we have already printed out this 4. So while coming down, we don't need to print the 4 again. So I am doing the m++ first and then consoling the next element, which will be 8. So I'm doing the m++ and then I need to print out matrix of m by n, and I need to increment the count. Every time I print an element, I need to increment the count. So once we finish this while loop, I need to change the direction. So after the down direction, I need to go left. So I changed the direction to the left. And since we finished one column, I will decrement the end column. Else if the direction is left, then I'm starting another while loop where I'll be checking n greater than start column. So while going in the left direction, I'll be starting from here and I'll go through the left until I reach the first column here. So I'm checking if n is greater than start column, which means I'll start from the end of the row and I will iterate backwards until I reach the starting. And since I already printed out the last element in the row, I'll first do the n minus minus and then I will print out the element with using console log. Then I'll change the direction. We also need to increment the count here, and I'll change the direction to up. And since we finished the last row, we need to decrement the end row. Else, so if the direction is not right, down or left, it will be the up will be the direction. Then we'll be doing a while loop where we'll check m greater than start row. So we will do this until we reach the first row. Well, first we are doing the m minus minus, since we already printed the, so while we are going up, we already printed this 13 while we are coming towards the left direction. So hence I am doing the m plus plus and then m minus minus, and then I am starting from the element 9 and going upwards until 5, because we have already printed the one. I'll be ending the while loop at 5. So after m minus minus, I'll print out the element, which is console log matrix m by n. I need to increment the count, and I need to change the direction to right, and I also need to increment the start row. So this is the end of the code. By the end of this code, after iterating through each and every element, the count becomes the count here becomes equal to the matrix count, hence the while loop stops here. And since we are using the console logs to print all the elements, by the end of this while loop, we'll have all the elements printed in the spiral form. So let's check it with some example. So let's take the same example. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16. So the matrix count is 16, because we have matrix length is 4 and matrix of 0 dot length is also 4. So 4 into 4 is 16, and let's we have m and n as 0. Start row is at 0 and end row is at 3, because matrix dot length minus 1 is 3, and start column is at 0 and end column is at 3. Count equals to, count is 1, direction is right. Next, what we are doing is we are printing out the first element, which is row at row 0, and column index is also 0, which is 1. So let's assume here we have the output. So 1 will be in the output. Then our while loop starts if count is less than matrix count. For now the count is 1. 1 is less than 16, it is right, so we go inside, and if the direction is right, yes, we have the right in the direction. And while n less than end column, so n is 0, where is that, n is 0 less than end column is 3, yes, this is right. So we are doing n plus plus, which makes n as 1, and we are doing the console.log matrix of mn, which is 0, m is 0 and n is 1 now, which becomes at the 0th row and the first column is 2 will be printed, and then the loop starts again and n is incremented. N becomes n is 1 now, so 1 is less than 3, and we increment the n, so n becomes 2. We'll be printing out the next element, which is 3. So we'll repeat this until we reach the 4. So the n at the end of this while loop will be 3. M is still at 0. Then we are incrementing the count, so the count becomes 4 because we printed 4 elements, and then we change the direction to down, and start row is becomes incremented. So the start row is 1, start row is 1. Then the while loop starts again, and now the direction is not right, so it comes to the else if when the direction is down, and here we are checking if m is less than n row. So m is 0 and n row is 3, so we have 3 in the n row, and it is correct. We are incrementing the m, which makes it 1. So we need to print out matrix of m is 1 and n is 3. So we'll be incrementing the m and printing all the elements, so it becomes we'll be ending up printing all the elements in the column 8, 12 and 16, which makes it n is still at 3, m becomes 3, and the count becomes 7. Since we finished this column, we'll be decrementing the end column. So the end column becomes 2. N row is still at 3 and start row is at 1. Start column is at 0. And the direction, will be changing the direction to left. Now the while loop starts again, and it's not right or it's not down, so it comes to this else if condition where the direction is left, and we'll be checking if n is greater than start column. Now we have the n at 3, so we'll check if 3 is greater than start column. Start column we have at 0, and we are doing n minus minus. We are doing n minus minus first because we have already printed out 16 here, so we don't need to print it again. So we are making the n 2 here, which becomes 2. Then we are printing out matrix of mn. So the m here is 3 and n we just decremented and it becomes 2. So at row 3 and n equals to 2 is 15. So we print 15, and we'll be incrementing the count. So the count becomes 8 because we already have the count as 7. It becomes 8, and while loop starts again. N now currently the n is at 2, n is at 2, and 2 is still greater than 0, which is the start column. So we'll decrement the n, which becomes n is equals to 1, and we'll print the next element, which is 14, and we'll increment the count to plus 1, which becomes 9, and we'll continue this until we reach here, which becomes here 13, and the count becomes so the count becomes 10, and n will be 0, n is at 0, m is at 3, so we change the direction to up, and we will be decrementing the n row. Since we already finished this row, the n row becomes this one, this row. So we have n row at 3. Once we decrement it, the n row becomes 2, and the end column is at 2. Start row is at 1, and the start column is 0. Now that it is the direction is left, now we come directly to the else condition, and we'll check if m is greater than the start row. So now we have m at 3. So if we'll check if 3 is greater than start row. Start row is at 1. It is greater than 1. So first we are doing the m minus minus, because we have already printed at the 13 here. So we need to start from 9, since we are doing the m minus minus, which makes it m equals to 2, and we are going to print out matrix of m by n. So m is 2, and n is at 0. So the second row and 0th column is we have 9. So we'll print it, and count will be incremented. Count becomes 11. Count becomes 11, and we'll repeat this process until we reach 5. So the count becomes by the end of the while loop, count becomes 12, and we change the direction to right, and the start, we'll increment the start row. So the start row will be 2, and then the direction here becomes right. So for now we have finished this column and this row. All that is left is 6, 7, 10 and 11. So the process starts again, and since the direction is right, we'll be starting from the right direction, and we'll go through this while loop again. So now the n is at 1, and end column, since we decremented the end column is at 2, which satisfies the condition, and we'll be doing n plus plus, and we'll be printing it and incrementing the count, which makes it 6, 6 will be printed, and in the right direction we'll print until 7. Then we change the direction to left. We change the direction to down, which comes to this else if condition, and we check the while loop, and we go down, and the process repeats, and at the finally we'll have all the elements until 10, 11 and 10. So now the count becomes 16, which makes it, so here when the count becomes 16, it is not less than matrix count anymore. So the end loop stops there. By the end of this while loop, we have all the elements printed in the output. So this is the code for this spiral form problem. Thank you.